Good morning, Big Dog here. Before I start, some Big Dog news. I am now 40, 40, 20, and I am a legend officially. I always knew I was a legend anyway. Don't need a badge to prove it, but there it is, and doesn't it look beautiful? Oh, excuse me. So yeah, I'm pretty much done as a Max Tunnel 11. What have I got left to do? Not much at all. Yeah, just one mortar and two sweepers, and of course walls, and then that's it. So it's a bit strange. Feels a bit weird. I hope they bring out new content because not really a lot to do now. And search times up in Legends are like 45 minutes, quite often, which is pretty horrific. Because you can't just jump on and do a raid. But I'm not ready to drop yet. I will eventually. Um, Anyway, on to the subject of today's video or rant. I don't want it to be a rant, actually. I'm going to make it a reasoned argument as to why we don't use Clash Caller or any bots to call bases in Phantom Zone. Why we are anti-Clash Caller, for want of a better word. Let's just put some raids on in the background so you've got something to look at while I drone on. Have a look at this one. So Clash Caller is a glorified spreadsheet, right? That's all Clash Caller is. We use Clash Caller is not a war strategy, right? It's a spreadsheet that people can go in and call bases with no direction, with no orchestration or no reaction to what is going on in that particular war. And the way we do it, I'll go on to discuss. We call in chat. We're active enough that there's always someone on who knows what's going on. People will come on and say, right, where do I need to attack? Where are you in the war? And they'll get direction, right? That, as far as I'm concerned, is the best way to run a war. What happens with Clash Caller is at the start of the war, people go on and assign a base, and it's reserved for them, right? And the worst kind of Clash Caller is there's no time on it. That's just it. Until they decide to log on and attack, that base is called for them. And if you're going by Clash Caller, the spreadsheet, no one can attack that base, regardless of where they are in the war, right? A slightly better system is where you time limit the calls, so 2 to 3 hours. If you're not on and attacked it by then, it becomes open again. But again, that relies on people flicking between systems. It's not in game. It's clunky. So why don't we like Clash Caller in PZ? Firstly, you see people calling bases on prep day, right? You can't see the bases on prep day. So you get the top nines going in and calling the top nines because they're a top nine, they're a max for a nine. They want to be the one that takes out the top nine, right? Likewise, eights call the eights, etc., etc. And what happens then is people tie up bases indefinitely. Like I said, if a guy comes on and calls a 9 and he doesn't log on till 4 hours before the end of the war, if there's no timer, then people feel that they can't attack that base. So you can't orchestrate, you can't react to what is going on in that situation. As Blanco said, and this is a direct quote, there's no consideration to the skill of clanmates. It's about hitting the base you personally picked and making everyone else wait. Couldn't agree more. Let's put another one on. And bases go fast, right? At the start of the war or whenever people come on to call a base, people will see bases disappearing, and so they'll just pick a base and call it, just so they've got one reserved, right? That's a decent weight compared to where they think they should. This is a Town Hall 9, so this was a Town Hall 9 up in what's he in? Yeah, I swag the spells. I try and make it fair, as you'll see. Anyway, so people come on at the start of the war, call a base. They'll see bases disappearing. They panic. They call it just so they've got something assigned to them with no real thought behind it, and then they feel obligated to hit it because they've called it. That leads to a lack of direction. Bases are left open, whilst repeated cleanup attempts are on higher bases, and low stars are left open. So what do we do that's different? So what we do is we do in-game calling. So at the start of the war, we'll assess the war. What kind of a war is it going to be? where should people be hitting from the start. We encourage the lower bases to hit first, so that we know where we are in relation to cleanup, etc. We'll bully people on Discord to come online. They're in chat. They know that they've got to go first. But we always have a view as to where we are in the war at that point in time, right? Not individually where people can hit, but where should they hit, given where we are in that war. The negative to that is you've got to have someone always on, right? It's got to be a co-leader, someone who's directing the war on and knowing what's going on, right? We're an international clan, but between the leaders and co-leaders, pretty much there's always someone on to do that, right? So I just look at an example of a war where I think we did this really well, right? It's actually a war we lost. Suspected potential modders, don't know. They had some burners in their clan. The guy actually came over afterwards and kind of said that they weren't. But it was a good war, regardless of what they did. It came down to the final attack. We lost it by 1. We won it on percentage if it had been a draw. But we were, at a disadvantage this war. We were outmatched in terms of the 9s. All of their 9s had max defense all the way down their side, right? They had 4 11s, we had 4 11s. They had 5 10s, we had 5 10s. So what would normally happen in this kind of war, right, if you're using Clash Caller with no direction, is the low 9s or the 8s or whoever's at the bottom will call these low bases, right? That's the lowest base, that's what I'm going to attack, right? They would burn their attacks and leave the bottom open because the high 9s, they don't want to hit down and hit a low 9, they want to hit high 9 or a mid-level 9, right? The 10s would then wait for the fails on, if there's fails on the high 9s, and then drop. And the 11s would cover the 11s or the 10s, right? That's what we'd normally do, right? In this war, what we did is we realised that there's no point burning the low 9 attacks on these max 9 defense bases. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to 3-star, right? So the first attacks in this war were this is a 9.5. This was a 9.5. Immediately. Take this out, and a 10 drops down to take this out. So 2 of the top 9s are immediately taken out at the very start of the war, right? This pushes the the top 9s down, right? They've got no choice, they're not going to attack up, and this means they've got a higher success rate in terms of getting 3 stars by coming down. What happened then is we encouraged the mid to 9s to hit down, so number 13 it's 20, 19 takes 19. We needed actually a 10 to drop to hit their 18. But the 9s are encouraged to hit early. They're encouraged to hit down. And then the bottom 9s we used to scout. You used to scout the 10s, you used to scout the 11s, and help the 11s plan the attack. So rather than them just throwing away 2-star attacks, 1-star attacks on the bottom 9s, the top 9s were able to drop and take them out. And then where needed, the remaining 10s came down to clean the 9s. The 11s had 1 hit at the 11s, obviously attempting to 2 or 3-star, and then they were left and they waited, and they came down to clean up the 10s where that was needed. Again, allowing the 10s to drop. So it's kind of hard to show visually, but that wouldn't have happened with Clash Caller. With Clash Caller, we would have lost this war by a significant extra amount. It's just a spreadsheet, it's not a war strategy. Maybe there's an argument for a mixture of the two, but you need someone on directing the war and coordinating people. You can't just rely on a system where people go in, call the base they want, and that's your strategy. That's not strategy. And the way we win so many wars at Phantom Zone when we're mismatched, is active war management, and I think that's the way forward. I've yet to see a successful war using Clash Caller. It's used as I've never seen it used with strategy, with active strategy. Well, that's on Caller, I'm going to override that as the war chief. That base shouldn't be hit by that person. It's kind of like once someone's called a base, no one can question it, and that's not the way to win wars. That's it, minor rant. but just something we've noticed moving around, doing events in other clans, etc., compared to how we run wars. Hopefully, there's some ideas there for you. Um, I'm not saying necessarily don't have some sort of calling system, but don't let people go in and reserve their own bases, and that can't be changed. There's got to be someone directing the war, someone looking at whether that's a good decision or not, and making the ultimate call on who attacks where. That's it, rant over. Catch you next time.